DePauw has been influential for many people in choosing their careers for their lives. Some have even felt the need to teach others what they've learned here. Now, my next guest, Dr. Robert Puckett, has felt such the desire to teach. Hello, Dr. Puckett. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm a professor of political science at Indiana State University here in Terre, Haute.
Do you find that when you... What did you major in?
Well, I majored in political science, and then I also had enough credits to major in history, too.
Oh, my goodness. Were there any classes or professors that you particularly enjoyed or that benefit you now? Or?
Well, I think there were quite a few, and three in particular that I remember. One was Dr. Baughman, who taught a senior colloquium.
He's still there, isn't he?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And it was based on the Great Ideas concept, Great Books concept, where you read about 15 books a semester of the classics of literature. And I think the second one I remember is Dr. Phillips, who taught a reading course on China, and the students picked their own books, about 15 books, and then discussed the books they had read and different issues about the history of China. And the third course that I remember quite well is English Constitutional and Legal History that was taught by Dr. Pearson, who died a few years ago. And I think those three courses interested me in intellectual life, and I decided to become a professor, I think probably in the first year of my freshman year.
Now that's unusual that you stuck with it, because most freshmen come in with an idea and then just switch completely. But you knew right off?
Yeah, I was interested in politics in high school, and then so that's why I decided to major in political science. And then when I got to DePauw, I decided I'd like to be a college professor.
Where did you go to graduate school?
I went to the University of Chicago and got a PhD in political science.
That's very interesting. Since you've been teaching, have you been on sabbatical?
I was on sabbatical about 3 years ago, and completed a book on isolationist ideology in American foreign policy.
That's over my head. What was basically...
Well, basically, I tried to trace the history of American foreign policy over the past 200 years, and it dealt with trying to trace the reasons why we intervene in some wars and are isolationists in other periods, and then try to bring it up to date in the post-Vietnam era, and discuss some of the sort of quasi-isolationist attitudes today. And but I think basically that's just a backlash to Vietnam, and will eventually die out.
Now you're back on my terms. Do you ever use that textbook in your classes? Did you ever? Or?
Well, I used it for 2 or 3 years, I think, for my American foreign policy courses.
But not as the main textbook?
No, just as collateral reading.
Reference. What courses do you like? Do you specialize?
Well, I specialize in international politics and American foreign policy, so I enjoy those. And then I teach some graduate courses in American national security and comparative foreign policy and theory of international relations.
Oh my goodness. What types of teaching do you do?
Well, I think I use various techniques, lecture discussions plus graduate seminars, and I've had some reading courses. And then we've also tried some mini courses, 1-hour courses on current topics such as political corruption and energy and world politics. And I taught one on Kissinger and one on a variety of issues that we hope anyway students will be interested in.
Do you think that a liberal arts education is a must, or?
Well, I think it's really it was helpful to me anyway, and I think it's an excellent preparation for a variety of careers.
Do you think that the structure of education has changed much? I mean, do you think that it needs to change?
Well, I think over the past 10 years or so, I think that the general education programs, which are basically the first 2 years of the college, have tended to become like a cafeteria style where you take whatever you want. But I think the pendulum is going to swing in the other direction in the next few years, so that most of the general education courses will be required, and there won't be as much choice. But you'll still have plenty of choice in choosing a major.
How do you feel about that? Do you think?
Well, I'm very much in favor.
I think I am too. Do you think, being a teacher, I think you're in a very good position to notice this. Do you think students' attitudes have changed over the years since you were a student at DePauw?
Well, I think social attitudes have certainly changed, and I think all to the good. But in terms of political attitudes and intellectual attitudes, I don't see any dramatic changes, really.
Back to change the subject, did you have any relatives that went to DePauw or anything?
Well, yes, my mother, father, and brother all went to DePauw. So.
They were definitely influential, I'm sure,
Yeah,
in your coming to DePauw.
And I'm glad I did, because I think I got a good education there.
Have you noticed the campus changing since you've been
Well,
back?
I think, as was mentioned, the Science Building, the Performing Arts Center, and I especially like the Performing Arts Center.
Have you been through those buildings?
Yeah, I attended most of the concerts last year. I wish
Very nice.
Indiana State University had one as good as that.
I do. Well, thank you very much for talking with us. We've really enjoyed talking with our DePauw alumni today and appreciate the time they've taken to share with us. The show is being taped on Old Gold Day today at DePauw, where many faithful alumni return and try to recapture fond memories and rekindle old friendships. Each DePauw graduate has his own interpretation of what DePauw has meant to him. Perhaps, to sum it all up, Bill Hayes, a 1947 graduate, says, "The spirit of DePauw gave me an enthusiasm and a spirit to learn the rest of my life." This is Sheila Horn, wishing you a pleasant afternoon.
You've been watching Outlook, produced in cooperation with the Public Affairs Department of WTHI TV. Appearing on today's program were Norman Knights, Darrell Felling, Sharon Hammond, and Dr. Robert Puckett. Our hostess was Sheila Horn. The show was produced by Ann Shutley and directed by John Wildman. The floor manager was Bill Radistitz, and sets were prepared by Don Ricks. Graphics were prepared by Terry Ryan. The music was composed and played by Frank Grasso. Special thanks to our supervisor, Dr. James Elrod. This is your announcer, Barb Ring, inviting you to join us on November 18th for a program on voice here on Outlook.